Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
All right. Were you listening to Josh and I struggle through a Monday morning trying to make sense of token valuations and our future?
I
Let me
was
just
listening.
Okay. That's good. Well, we're excited to have you on because I think espresso is I think something Josh and I have heard about quite a bit, have sort of done a little bit of research on, and also feel very I guess out of the loop and like the bigger picture and how this fits in, and I think just very eager to hear from you about the gap in the world that exists that espresso
Yeah,
is solving. And then I want to talk, we're going to pull you into this more esoteric conversation here as well, because
okay,
we like some partners in it, but let's start there.
great. So it's remarkable how Web3 is still so fragmented, just like Web2 is, right? And where we began with this whole crypto blockchain journey, 15 years ago, was to solve this problem of fragmentation in the world where there's so many different dozen different global exchanges. Like there's all these different payment systems. They're all fragmented. They are not interoperable with each other. And fast forward 15 years, and we kind of still see the same thing in Web3. And so you're thinking like, whoa, what's going on here? And Espresso is really designed, I think, to solve that problem. We're extremely close. There's a number of reasons why we're still so fragmented. And Espresso, we're designing to be a solution to fix that fragmentation.
Can you maybe put a finer point on the difference between fragmentation and interoperability?
Yeah.
I think it's easy to feel like crypto is reasonably interoperable today. Like I can, have assets on Sol and Bridge and take them to any other chain and go do what I want there. But I think that's meaningfully different than how you're talking about like liquidity fragmentation.
Yeah. So what makes something less fragmented is, I guess, more about the user experience and also the real-time aspect of the user experience as well, right? So if a user can pay another user anywhere without having the experience of having to, have an account on that other system, and things just work, and there aren't high costs associated with it. That is what I view as, a world that's not fragmented for payments. And the same thing for exchanges, right? If there are a lot of different global exchanges and you have to have an account in these different systems and you're only getting matched with buyers and sellers within the same system, then that's fragmentation. There's one internet, and so ideally, anyone connected to the internet who owns a digital asset should be able to just express their intent to sell that digital asset and be connected with the largest possible liquidity pool, which is the entire internet. And we don't really have that yet in Web3, even though you can bridge by working with different market makers who are, acting independently to facilitate you from going from one system to another. It's still not a unified experience.
So, I mean, let's imagine espresso is wildly successful. How does my experience using crypto in the future change?
Your experience using crypto in the future should look exactly like using any, Web2 app. If you're a PayPal user, you should just be able to make a payment, and underneath the hood, you'd be able to pay a line pay user in Japanese yen, but you don't really experience that happening. And when you go to trade, you get the best execution price you possibly could without having to worry about whether you have an account on Hyperliquid or an account on Binance or whatever that might be. And Espresso would be invisible to the end user, just like blockchains in general should be invisible to the end users of the internet. It's simply a framework for better, secure communication between all web applications.
Got it. Yeah. Can you tell us a bit more about how the tech works, I guess, and
Yes,
how Espresso actually accomplishes this?
absolutely. So there are going to be, thousands, maybe even millions of chains. That's just the reality that we live in, just like there are tens of millions of mobile applications today. And the reason for that is scalability and customizability. That's why we have so much fragmentation in Web3. If everything was on Ethereum or everything was on Solana, it would be less fragmented, but that's just not a scalable world, and that's not the reality that we live in. And so the one thing that has fallen behind is the speed of these chains. If you make chains much faster so they can finalize transactions in real time, then applications on different blockchains can talk to each other in real time, and that will provide the back end for the seamless user experience that I'm describing. And so Espresso is just a better base layer than Ethereum for powering that. It has real-time finality, and it's scalable like Ethereum in its ability to support thousands or tens of layer 2 chains on top.
Who do you sort of see as like I guess the competitive set here? Like, what are people making a decision between Espresso and?
Good question. Yeah. So the interesting thing is that you can actually still use Ethereum while also using Espresso. And that's the beautiful thing about layer 1 that serves as a base layer for layer 2 chains. In fact, we've got 20 rollups that are Ethereum rollups that are either already on Espresso or in the process of integrating with Espresso, and they still have their bridge to Ethereum where users can deposit ETH into the rollup just like they do today. The point is that by running on Espresso, they get real-time transaction finality from Espresso, which is not something that they get from Ethereum.
Got it. It seems like this is probably an easy thing to convince, I guess, emergent chains with low liquidity to come be a part of. But what's the pitch for someone like Solana or Hyperliquid or Base, who clearly wants to go, own this world? I think owning the flows and owning liquidity is a big part of the competitive dynamics. So like, what's going to get them to want to use this?
Yeah. Well, I think though people are waking up to the fact that having real-time transaction finality is table stakes. And you see this in the fact that there's an obsession with Monad, there's an obsession with Tempo, the new Stripe chain, and all of these chains, the main thing that distinguishes them from other chains is having fast finality. But if you're going to have many, many, many different chains, then not every chain is going to build its own layer 1 protocol to reach fast finality. And so just even due to competitive dynamics between the different platforms out there for launching payment applications, stable coins, or tokenizing real world assets, whatever it may be, Base is going to face competition from Monad and the future version of Solana and Tempo, and all these systems have fast finality, so Base needs to have it too. Layer 2 chains can get fast finality by running on a fast L1 base layer, and that's what Espresso is.
Got it. So is Espresso directly competitive with Ethereum mainnet?
So it's not competitive directly with Ethereum mainnet in the sense that something like Base can still continue to use Ethereum mainnet and still have its bridge to Ethereum mainnet. So Celo and ApeChain are integrated with Espresso, and they continue to have Ethereum as a native bridge, but it does compete with Ethereum in the sense that it provides the essential services that Ethereum needs to provide to layer 2 chains in a much, much better way. It's just that you can use both of them together in a very mutually beneficial way.
Interesting. Okay. I know you guys did a crowd, or I guess a pre-token sale, token sale. I don't know how to just. So many different versions of these things right now. You don't have a token out yet.
Yeah.
You did a sale. Was it on Kaido? Is that right?
We did a small sale on Kaido.
Okay.
Yeah. We're coming up on our TGE very soon. And so the Kaido sale was just to engage the Kaido community specifically. We've also gone through multiple rounds of venture funding.
So the thing that I think is top of mind for everybody right now is I think trying to figure out the economics of these ecosystems.
Yeah.
And I think the right place to start there is sort of at the high level. Can you give me like the smooth brain understanding of how value flows through Espresso? And would love to get into some thinking about the token and the ecosystem going forward.
Absolutely. Yeah. So chains use Espresso the same way chains use Ethereum, or that chains use any data availability layer. Espresso is much more than just a data availability system like Celestia or EigenLayer, but the relationship to chains is similar in the sense that it's the sequencer or the servers operating the chain that post transactions to Espresso, not directly the end users. Unless chains use Espresso for decentralized sequencing, in which case end users would be sending transactions directly to the Espresso base layer. And ultimately, value will be captured from the fact that all transactions on all chains that are using Espresso are ultimately Espresso transactions, even though they first flow through the direct operators of those chains that are collecting those transactions. And I do think that in the long run, when you talk about a world of unified liquidity or a universal exchange, whereby every chain that is fast enough can, be connected to this universal exchange, value accrues to the thing that anchors the network effect. And that thing is the layer that makes this all possible, right? That provides security, the thing that's essential to plug into in order to be part of a universal exchange or a universal payment system. And that, I do believe, is Espresso.
And how are you thinking about both role of the token, and how are you talking about, the value accrual to the token? Is it the future cash flows of this thing? Is it kind of something more nuanced, like we often talk about with L1s?
Well, Espresso is a layer one, and so like other layer ones that have a token, the token is used for securing the consensus protocol. So it's a standard delegated proof of stake protocol. And so any validator that is participating in consensus has the opportunity to earn part of the revenue that's being generated by the protocol.
Got it. So its token sort of provisions resources on the network, secures the network, but individual L2 tokens, the sort of moneyness comes from maybe the individual networks themselves, depending on whether they're using ETH, Sol, or their own native token.
Yeah, I would say that the economics of every layer one, though, are pretty identical in the sense that fundamental value comes from the ability to participate as an operator in these protocols. And, in general, I think that, any kind of token as a means of transacting is absolutely substitutable for stablecoins. And you already see that happening. I mean, ETH doesn't really have moneyness in the sense of it's money. It's more that ETH is the thing that validators of Ethereum can stake in order to participate in Ethereum and earn as part of operating Ethereum. I think this is basically identical for every single layer one protocol, including Espresso.
Interesting. I think we have some fundamental disagreements maybe on what makes these tokens valuable. Because to me, it seems like, and actually, I think this is like, at the heart of the interesting conversation right now. It seems like I guess one way would be to describe L1 valuations would be how you described it there. There's sort of an economic need to secure the network and the fundamental staking on these validators as a way of locking those tokens, and then, some earnings on top of that. I think the other way is this money discussion, which is, the demand for these tokens are ultimately driven by the novel, interesting, speculative, valuable things that are being launched or provisioned by the network, and that you need to actually hold or use the underlying token to participate in. And I think both of those, have some questions underneath them. I think some of them are driven by stable coin proliferation. I think the others are sort of driven by the amount of, or I guess the pushback to the model that you're suggesting here is just like the competition and the ultimate sort of drive towards zero for the cost of block space. Maybe neither of those are bullish. They're probably not fully correct either. I'm curious what you would say to sort of some of that pushback.
I don't know that we fundamentally disagree, but I would describe those as sort of what you're describing as structural demand sinks.
Okay.
And so, all layer ones, including Espresso and Ethereum and Solana, have these structural demand sinks where you need to use the token to do something within the network. But the way that I look at it, like whatever the value of the token, it doesn't really matter what the value of the token is. If it's worth less, then you would just buy more of it to do the same activity. So the real fundamental value for all of these different tokens does ultimately come from the demand for block space.
Right. Yeah.
But of course, that doesn't mean that's how the market prices it, right? Because people have their own beliefs and can price it different ways. Ultimately, the immediate value comes from how people decide it's valuable. But I do think long-term fundamental value does come from demand for block space on these different things, or for execution space. But the bottom line is that I think all these different layer ones have basically the same token economics at the end of the day.
I mean, if you guys just TGE'd and Arthur Hayes was coming at you and saying, "I'm a trader, show me the flows," what would be your response to that?
Unlock all your tokens on day one.
You know, I mean, we'll be very transparent about the, you know, how the token distribution looks like, and you know, what the role of the token is. I mean, from day one, the role of the token is pretty straightforward. It's a staking token. You can delegate stake, or you can use it to operate a validator. And we can let people kind of reach their own conclusions or beliefs about, you know, what makes that valuable. But we're just transparent about, look, this is a protocol that we believe is the essential ingredient to allow Web3 to achieve its original vision. We believe that there should be, you know, thousands to millions or even tens of millions of different chains, just like there's tens of millions of web apps today. And everyone should be able to have high performance, fast transaction speed so that everything can be interoperable.
Yeah, that feels like the big bet you guys are making, is this world of a million chains is actually going to come, even though it really hasn't yet. So maybe I'm interested to kind of double click on that. And
yeah,
are those millions of chains? Are those like app chains, kind of more general purpose chains, kind of vertical specific chains? Like, how do you see that world emerging?
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is that any application, if given the choice between running its own chain, you know, versus running as a smart contract on a different chain, all else being equal, would choose to run as its own chain. And there's all kinds of reasons for that, right? Customizability, control. Just like if you're building your own mobile app today, right? That's the way that you would build it, right? You wouldn't. And there's also so many applications that already exist in the world today that haven't come to Web3 because it would require such a big lift to re-architect it as like a smart contract on Solana. And so what things like Espresso enable are existing web applications that already are used by millions of people in the world today to become a Web3 chain overnight, simply by posting their transactions to Espresso as a base layer and now being able to communicate and interoperate with the rest of the world of Web3. So that's why I believe in this thesis, because we already have a world of web applications and we just need to upgrade that. It will be as seamless as the upgrade from HTTP to HTTPS.
It's a good line. That's a good line. I just add the S after it, and then I'm good to go. Yeah, I think. I mean, that's sort of the fun thing about getting to participate in sort of the creation of the future, is that we have to start to make sense of timelines, and also know that we're really good at overestimating in the short term and underestimating in the long term. And it kind of creates, especially as these things start to compound on top of each other, it creates these loops where we go, is this a long-term vision I'm holding, or is this a short-term? I mean, we have self-driving cars right now that people thought would have never come, and yet here we are, and we're like, okay, that's kind of cool. And yet when we start to think about this world where everything's a chain, you see sort of the limitations that exist today, or at least some of like the shortcomings. You go, oh, fuck, that's never going to happen.
Right.
And yet I think clearly that is sort of like the direction technology goes. It just makes things that are very complex very cheap and easy relatively quickly. So I think that's interesting. I am interested about this sort of founder role navigating the market and the landscape that exists today, especially when you're approaching a token launch. It seems like these narratives and intrigues and that maybe lead to some of the details and how we make decisions change. I mean, I guess it's probably monthly now. Maybe it was quarterly beforehand. I'm curious how much you have sort of shifted your thinking about either what you're building, how to position what you're building, how you're thinking about your token, say over the last 6 months versus maybe where you were when you started.
Things haven't changed much in the last 6 months, but things have definitely changed, dramatically over time. This space moves extremely quickly, as you all know, and so when we started building, we were focused on bringing privacy to stablecoin payments in a way that was more compatible with kind of the way that privacy works in traditional payment systems today, and that we were way too early because that was like 5 years ago. And then we pivoted into building infrastructure that would make Web3 just a lot more interoperable and closer to the way that the web works today. And now we're starting to see a lot more real world adoption, and you're seeing a lot of banks and traditional fintech players coming and looking at running chains. And so that's now is the time to kind of go back to looking at working with traditional fintech players and helping them come on chain and continue to do what they do today, but in a way that's plugged into Web3.
I'm interested in what, I think we're kind of in this moment where a lot of people are losing their belief in crypto. So I'm interested in what kind of underwrites your continued conviction in it, or why the future of the world needs this tech.
It's very simple for me. I've been in this field an extremely long time, and I've always viewed blockchains as just an upgrade to the security of the web. And I think that the reason why some people are losing conviction is because some people had a kind of delusional model of what crypto was. And so it's very easy to get carried away thinking about what crypto is and end up somewhere that it isn't, and then get disappointed when you realize it's not that thing. But just like going back to this HTTP to HTTPS analogy, web applications today don't have a secure way of communicating with each other in real time, and blockchains provide that. It's taken us some time to hone the technology to get to the point where we can support the entire web at scale, but we're there. And so I really view kind of Espresso as taking the best of Solana and the best of Ethereum and providing that to the existing web.
So where do you see like I think that sort of collective delusion and then back to some sort of sense of reality and then back to collective delusion seems to be the path of crypto. And yet this time it feels like there is actually, I'm going to say more fundamental value, not in sort of the FDV or like the price calculation, but more that people are seeing the unlocks that stablecoins can bring. They're seeing the unlocks that blockchains with payment rails can bring. And so there is sort of like this real business use case here that I think is interesting, and that I think a lot of folks who, walk down these delusion paths maybe earlier than others are kind of having a hard time grokking where the opportunity has shifted to here. So I'm curious if you look out over the next, say, 18 months, given the momentum that we have right now in the places that we have it, where do you think the big opportunities lie?
Yeah, I think they're in stable coins, real world asset tokenization, and exchange. I mean, those are like the big categories, and I'm more bullish than ever based on what's happened in the last year, because those are the things that I focus on. Right, stable coins are already used for 9 trillion in adjusted annual transactions, rivaling Visa and PayPal, and that's insane. Insane. When I was in this space, starting in 2012 or so, when I started getting into the space. Like that was, I would never have imagined that, right?
Yeah, I know.
That's crazy.
2017 for me, and I still have to be like, wait, hold on a second. We're here.
Yeah.
What does that mean now?
Right.
It was like we were not ready to catch our tail, sort of thing.
Right. I mean, and if you look at something like Hyperliquid, like the highest trading volume is in synthetic assets, right? Like NASDAQ index, NVIDIA, Google, and so it's just all these new tools are an upgraded way to run the web and the world of digital assets as they exist today. And I think that that's why I'm so excited today. I'm not as focused on Web3 as this kind of like alien world that looks extremely different. I'm bullish on it as this way of taking the world as it exists today and making it work better. And so we're nearly at the place where, as a PayPal user, I can go to Japan and pay someone and not have to have a line pay account and not even think about it. And the fact that by turning something like PayPal into a Web3 based application, it allows market makers to easily make that happen behind the scenes without me having to think about it. I mean, that's Web3.
Well, so I'm curious, if you were to say you're starting today, Espresso exists, you want to go build on the superpowers that this modern tech stack has.
Yeah.
I mean, you must have some ideas around, if I wasn't doing this, maybe I'd go work on this part of the market. Like, where do you see those opportunities?
Yeah, I think that there's a big opportunity right now to create essentially a non-custodial Binance, or that's not even like, I mean, Hyperliquid itself is operating as a isolated exchange, and we don't quite have the infrastructure to facilitate what I would call just a cross-chain exchange, where we've seen this a little bit with the intent systems that exist, like near intents and across. Those are the beginnings of what I'm describing. But essentially building something where any user anywhere on any chain can just express their intent to sell an asset and be connected to the entire internet of other Web3 users. That's something that could be built today, that if I wasn't that I want to see built today, that Espresso paves the way for, but that we're not explicitly building ourselves. I mean, there are other things too, though. I would say that I would say that the players that have actually the biggest opportunity are not new developers, but the developers of existing applications out there. Anything can be converted into a Web3 chain today so easily, like so much more easily than it ever was possible before. And so I'm excited to see that happening.
I think that's a fascinating line to pull on too. Like, do you have sort of like obvious candidates? What's the most obvious application of this for like a traditional or already existing scaled, say, consumer or B2B app?
Yeah, well, I would say all the payment systems, right? So, like Stripe, ADN, and PayPal, and Line, and Alipay, and Samsung Pay, and all these different digital wallets, like they should absolutely just become blockchains themselves. They shouldn't even look at developing like their own EVM chain. It's like sort of with Robinhood. I'm sort of surprised to see Robinhood developing like its own EVM chain, which is, I mean, it's just already so cool that Robinhood is doing that. But Robinhood could also just turn Robinhood, the app that exists today, into a Web3 chain. I mean, it's already an application. It writes to a database. Instead of writing to its own internal database, it could write to...
Yeah, what do you think that discussion, like what goes on there? Because it seems like people are still seeing value to be sort of an L1, L2, some sort of like novel, differentiated, but amongst that set of competitors type of chain. And I think when we start talking about, whether it's layer 3s or app chains, et cetera, the intrigue there goes down quite a bit.
Yeah, and I think it's because people are still looking at chains as a new business opportunity rather than looking at chains as a upgrade to their existing flagship application.
Right.
And so it's, to come back to the thing that I was saying, right? It's once people start looking at it as the upgrade from HTTP to HTTPS, they'll look at it very differently, and then they won't care about this layer 3, layer 2, layer 1 thing. And so it's kind of, I think it's kind of nuts that Stripe is building Tempo. I'll just come on and say that. I mean, we already have, the technology that would allow any traditional application, payment application, trading application, whatever it may be, to become a fast chain by using the existing blockchains as a database. And we need to make those existing blockchains more efficient. And that's why we're building like Espresso as an improvement on, so taking the best, as I said, of Solana and Ethereum. But traditional, fintech, they already have wildly successful businesses. They don't need to build chains, right? They need to use the chains in order to make their existing applications work better and become more interconnected to the rest of the web.
Yeah, interesting.
So why are they building a chain then?
Well, I think that I think people still don't quite appreciate what Web3 is about and what it enables existing applications to do. And I think that a lot of businesses look at the opportunity of building a chain as just another business opportunity, right?
Balance sheet expansion technology.
Balance sheet expansion, right? Instead of looking at it as a means of making their existing application more secure and more interconnected in the world. And so that's the shift I'm excited about. And I think as we've seen in the last couple of years with real use cases like stablecoin payments and, real world asset tokenizations and exchanges that, work better than what we've had before, right? We're seeing the web wake up to the fact that actually this allows us to do things in a better way. Right? And it's not just about, building chains and marketing that and like having a token and things like that.
Return to fundamentals.
Right.
Love it. All right, Ben, I mean, you've been very generous with your time today. Thank you for hanging out with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, super interesting conversation. And I do really like just checking in with people who've been around for many, many cycles. I think you said you got intrigued in 2012, 2013. Like that's as far back as
That's
you can
early.
go, basically.
That's early.
So, yeah, it is interesting having that sort of perspective to sort of see how these narrative loops kind of open and close, and at least hold a sense of the direction that we're marching towards. So, wish you guys all the best as you approach. I guess Q1 is going to be a big Q1 for y'all. So, we'd love to check in with you again, actually, as you guys approach the token launch, or maybe just afterwards.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Cheers, Ben.
Peace, man.
From
Take care.
Espresso.
Bye.